It's a mixed bag for me. Strictly my opinions, they shouldn't mean anything to anybody, but I don't like anime, I don't like cartoons or whimsy, and elf ears are not supposed to be 10 inches long. I don't know when that started. And here we have upcoming these revised 5th edition books, or 1 D&D books, I don't know, whatever. The new books, the thing. The covers have been revealed. So let's look at the player's handbook. Now, I love this. You got the whole color spectrum, and the overall saturation is slightly dimmed, and the painterly approach gives it a slightly dreamy effect, which I like. My vision of fantasy role-playing settings is not real, kinda dirty, kind of unreliable, like you're looking upon a tableau of ancient events. And you got the classics here. You got the cleric with a glowing blue staff that isn't filigreed all to hell with AI-looking ornate metal weave. We got a wizard, mid-casting, dressed appropriately, again, not having just emerged from a bedazzling factory. This is part of the problem I have with Pathfinder art. You got a couple of fighter types, and a dwarf, and of course, the gold dragon. Massive, imposing, but just kinda there. I like this. I'm gonna say something weird here. This scene is not epic. These characters look like proper adventurers, not Mary Sues. I am not interested in, quote, epic gameplay, at least not until it's earned. I am interested in the classic fantasy tropes, fulfilling their unique role, excelling at it, and sucking at most everything else. I don't like multi-classing. I allow it, but I don't like it. This party right here seems to be dressed out appropriately, and their poses reflect their roles. Front and center. Support. Elevated above the mundane physical world. Nice. There's also lizard men. Now the back cover, again, tasteful, restrained style on these characters with a somewhat muted palette. I love this. And the elves' ears are the proper length. And they're riding a copper dragon. Yes, it's different than the dragon on the cover. Look at the seafoam colored verdigris. That doesn't happen on gold. Gold doesn't patinate or oxidize at all. That's why it's so valuable. This is a copper dragon that they're on. The only thing I don't like is this dumb text blazoned right over top. Create heroic characters. How about, like, maybe create fantastical characters? Or better yet, just keep it no text. Keep it classy. The title of the book is The Player's Handbook. Like, the movie poster for Terminator 2 didn't have a tagline saying, The Second Terminator. Alright, and here's the alternate cover. Seems like about 10 years ago, alternate covers started to become a thing for tabletop RPG books. I don't like it. It's FOMO tactics. It's money grubbing. That said, I reserve the right to have unsaid that last sentence at any time in the future. But, this cover is amazing. It's a huge step even further in the muted approach. In fact, when I first saw it, I thought it was like a caveman drawing up on a wall. You have just the 4 classic classes, and only them. This is a portrait of antiquity, a distillation down to the bare essence of D&D, a primordial rendering of what we know and love. And this dragon's sinuous, snake-like body kind of reminds me of Neverending Story, specifically toward the end of that movie where like all of reality is gone except this one location that we're seeing. Well, here on this cover, this cave is that location. Outside of it, anything is possible again. This cover feels like hitting the reset button on the D&D aesthetic, and I love that. On to the Dungeon Master's Guide. Notably, green is missing from this cover entirely. I have no further comment on that, it just is. Now look at the elements. We have a profane altar with a skull. Skulls are cool. An army of skeletons, lambs to the slaughter. And then these 3. Skyla, or Scylla, not sure, is a human witch who appeared in the modules Quest for the Heartstone and the Shady Dragon Inn. Neither of which I'd ever heard of. I had no idea who she was. Everything I just said was read from a wiki. What can I say? 99% of my games are homebrewed. I very rarely touch published modules or campaigns. Same for this guy, Warduke. From my reading, I am taken to understand that these 2 are obscure picks for this cover. And I say, bravo, deep cuts are fun. This guy is Wenger from the 1980s D&D cartoon, where he was voiced by none other than Peter Cullen, aka Optimus Prime. And I'm just now noticing this as I'm recording here, but there's the head of something very big in the mist behind us. That purple energy had sort of obscured it for me, but no, not a black dragon, a Dracolich? Actually, you know what? I think those eyes, that figure, is meant to be the Dungeon Master. This is the DMG. All of these evil forces are being marshaled under the gaze of that godlike entity above and behind them in the mist. Just like the DM. The viewpoint of this image is that of the player characters, with all this evil advancing on them. This bad news is coming towards them, and behind it all, just like at the table, is the DM. Good cover. And then the back cover, we have the Underdark. Classic, gotta do it. It's my favorite setting in D&D lore, so I'm biased here. But I will say that I like my Underdark to be purple and blue. Yellows and greens got no place down here. And there's the party, insignificant in the world as they should be, venturing into what appears to be an Illithid city or temple. And now the DMG alternate cover. I don't like this. I don't like it, for several reasons. It's got this hardline, cell-colored in cartoon style. I have no idea who or what this is supposed to be. And the Drider's ears are like 4 times too long. Also, she's smirking, but it's not an evil smirk. Like, it's not a, oh, you're gonna die now, I got you, sucka kind of smirk. It's the kind of smirk you see on a benevolent angel from on high who is descending to confer blessings upon you. Not helped at all by the gentle golden glow behind her. There is no malice or menace in this face at all. This image is utterly confusing to me and does not scream DMG in the least. F+. And the monster manual. Here we go, a return to form like that player's handbook cover. Painterly, colorful, bit desaturated, and a good mix. Got goblins, a mimic, displacer beast, lost soul, and front and center, of course, is the beholder. It's been done before, it's being done now, and it should be done again. I would wager that the Eye Tyrant is an even more iconic monster in D&D than the dragon itself at this point. And for good reason. They're fascinating, they're imaginative, they're fun to run, they're fun to fight against. Awesome. And this overall color gradient is good for establishing a feeling of being deep underground, where D&D adventurers ought to be most of the time, while at the same time hinting that glorious rewards are not far below. Assuming they survive, which they won't. And I can't tell for sure at this resolution, but that particular face tattoo, I think that's Minsk, which automatically elevates everything. And the back cover. What can I say? Fantastic. A beautiful collage of classics, rendered cleanly such that each one sticks out well when you want to observe it. I think what I like most about this image is that someone who's had zero exposure to D&D or fantasy in general would look upon this and be utterly confused and hopefully fascinated. You'd want to go and understand what the hell each of these things are. I mean, and now the alternate cover. Once again, I am let down. Cell-shaded cartoon dross. And look, Baldur's Gate 3 is a great video game. It's a landmark achievement in that form of media, but let's move on from the mind flayers and the tadpoles, okay? This image is like ripped directly from the opening sequences of Baldur's Gate 3. Enough. Although, if you are into mind flayers, you should definitely watch my video about how to build an entire mind flayer colony for your tabletop. But there is no subtlety to this image. There is precious little creativity, although these swirling surfaces are a nice alien touch, but there's no background. It's a blue gradient. A blue gradient. Also, he's too thin. Like, is that his upper arm? I think this line here indicates the border of his cape, so the space behind him is empty. Where's the rest of him? So dainty. I don't know, I just don't have much else to say about this image because there's not that much to it. It's a mind flayer, drawn in a manner that is objectively correct, but for me, just not very immersive or terrifying or even interesting. Alright, all that said, let it be known that all of the artists involved here are to be commended, every single one, even if I personally didn't jive with the artwork. I hope every single one of them was paid well, and every single one of them should be proud to have landed a big-time job like an official D&D cover. Good on all of you.